Welcome back to the Michael D. and the Author Spotlight. I'm your host, Michael D. Butler, and I'm so excited about this next guest. Dr. Steve Ahmed is the author of Falling Asleep to the Sound of Rain, Thunder, Lightning, and Flashes of My Life. Very seldom do we get inspired to this level, but the exciting thing about this book is we see so much transparency, authenticity, and courage right here in the middle of a diagnosis. A beautiful life that has many twists and turns. But I think you're going to appreciate the read and getting to know my friend, Dr. Steve Ahmed. Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Mike?
Well, really, really excited to interview you because it's this journey of yours. When did you get the diagnosis that you had pancreatic cancer, and what month and year was that?
This was end of March of 2020. I think that was the era of COVID.
So right at the beginning of COVID, right when the world was shutting down for COVID, you were getting diagnosed. You knew something was wrong. You're a doctor yourself. You're a pediatrician in Texas, and you knew something wasn't quite right. So, kind of take us on this journey. You were born in Stan. You met your wife there. I want to get in several things on this interview today so people can really get to know you. You grew up in a Muslim nation. You converted to Catholicism when you married your wife, and there was some discrimination there. There was some persecution there, and you made the difficult decision to come to the U.S. first to London to go to medical school. So, how was it that you come to this diagnosis that you didn't want to tell your children, you didn't want to worry your children and your wife, but you couldn't hide it from your wife? You were in pain. What was going on?
So that was back in early February. There was some snow, and I ran a medical practice, and there was ice and snow, and there was no one to help me out. So I don't wanted anybody to fall coming to the urgent care. So I start shoveling the snow myself and make a path and put a salt. And after that, I had a little bit of backache, and I thought it is the musculoskeletal, and took some pain medication, but the pain persisted. So as a physician, you cannot order test on yourself. So I have to ask my one of colleagues and to order me a scan, and they thought I'm crazy because I'm overthinking about things and I'm going to the extremes. And we came with the one scan, which came out to be okay. And then follow-up scan showed stage 4 pancreatic cancer, 3 months to live. And that's all they gave it to me. And they said, do what you need to do. This is the 3 months you have, and finish it up what you need to do.
So 3 months to live, and it's been this March. It'll be 3 years. Am I doing the math right?
This will be, yeah, close to 3 years. Actually, 2 years. I'm Because of the chemotherapy and stuff, I'm messed up with my dates. So yeah, so it will be two
Got
years.
Well, I tell you, I can never get dates straight. I have four sons and two grandsons, and I get it figured out in my head, wrapped around it, and some birthday, and it throws me off, Steve. So it's just been a courageous journey for you. Some people get that phone call that a parent or a grandparent has passed away in a car accident or a heart attack. Is it different when you know the end is near, but you just don't know where the finish line is? How do you prepare for that? I mean, I wrote the book. Had you thought of doing a book before the diagnosis, or was that a result of the
No,
diagnosis?
I had a long dream about writing a book about my life, and also writing a book of the cases which I have seen in a rural setting of a Texas as a primary care provider. So I had a dream to write two different books, one about my life story, and second was about the cases which I come across during the my practice of 30 year in rural Texas. But when you're in practice, you're busy, and you say, okay, when I slow down, one day when I retire, and I had a clear cut line that I will retire by 60, and that was I was not moving the line. but I knew that I would retire by 60, and I had everything planned accordingly. And I also planned that the practice will go on as a non-profit, and that was a goal to work on that. But this bomber strike me right at 58. It's 2 years before my finish line.
So I want to get into the nonprofit here in a moment, little more deeply. You and I, by the way, for those just tuning in, Dr. Steve Ahmed, he is a pediatrician in Big Spring, Texas, and you know so many accolades and awards and third generation families that love you in Texas. You know, I want to talk today a little bit about Providence and how you came to the U.S., but I also want to talk about your parents. And the thing is, I read your story again because you and I have so much in common. I'm going to give you four things. You can guess which one we don't have a similarity to. So, collecting stamps and coins as a child, you loved to travel, you dreamed of travel, and you grew up on a farm, and you have a son that is a cancer survivor. So, we share all of those things, except I didn't grow up on the dairy farm. My father did. So, how hard, I think some people don't realize, Steve, how hard it is when you're in a country like Pakistan to actually the clearance to go to medical school and to leave. Your father, fortunately, was very supportive. Tell me a little bit about that struggle and that journey and the rejections, and then how you never gave up on your dream.
Growing up in a third world country, my father was a well-educated person. He did his graduation back then when people never go to school, and but he had a family to support, especially his brothers and sisters. So he gave up the dream of pursuing a career in a government. He rather did his family business to raise his brothers and sisters. And then when he was had his own family, his main goal was to give education to all my brothers and sisters. We are a family of 11, and four of us are physicians, and others are well educated. So education was seeded in, right? There was no excuse, or there was no escape, that you gotta be educated in a sense of graduating from a university and stuff like that. So that was embedded in us by our dad. Getting out of a third world country and seeing the world was my dream, because when I was a little kid collecting stamps and having a PayPal where I communicate with people with letters, where people can send an email now, and collecting coins.
Well, I also had pen pal friends from all over the world. I dreamed of travel, and I have done much of the travel. I want to ask you in a moment about your trip to Israel and then your return trip to Israel. I love that country so much as well. But talk to me a little bit about you're so indebted to your parents and their belief in you, and then also them encouraging you and helping you achieve your dream. Um, many many people don't realize how tough it is to be an immigrant, and we publish books for immigrants. Powerful Female Immigrants is in its second volume of that. We're going to ask you to be a part of Powerful Immigrants that includes the men, stories from the men, because I think a lot of people don't realize the sacrifices that are made because you're practicing as a pediatrician in Texas and you weren't able to leave your practice to attend your parents' funeral. You honor them so much. How much is honor a part of your family code now with your wife, your children, your grandbaby? It seems like this has always been a part of who you. And then how are you able to kind of pass the baton, so to speak? I know you're a person of faith. How important is faith to you? And then how do you pass the baton and leave a legacy?
Uh, I think no faith is complete without respecting your parents. And every faith talks about respecting your parents, and because they're the one they're the reason you are in this world. So you need to respect them, honor them, and do whatever best you can do. And family is very, very important and essential for any human being. And so the family values and structure of family is very important for any human being. Faith is very important. You need to have some kind of faith. You need to believe in a superpower, whether whatever you call it, but you need to believe in a superpower in this universe, because there is a power which is running this whole thing. So I think those things are very important in any human being's life.
Well, the name of the book is Falling Asleep to the Sound of Rain, Thunder and Flashes of My Life. As you and Tom Black consulted on this book and what it would look like, you knew you wanted to do a memoir, but there was a day in the office where you were busy because you were preparing the work for the next day to see the patients. And you noticed that you didn't step outside to take a moment to just enjoy the rain. Have you been able to stop and enjoy and reflect? Tell us a little bit about some of the things that you've discovered about yourself and some of the things that you've been able, those treasured moments. What are some of the most meaningful moments you've had with your family since the diagnosis, even though you've been in a lot of pain?
I think when we are young and we are trying to struggle and trying to make our careers, we postpone a lot of things. And I just tell everyone tomorrow is not promised. So enjoy your loved ones today. Love
Mm.
them, hug them, enjoy them. Do the basic things. Don't need to go to a Europe trip. A simple going to your backyard, watching the birds, watching this, snow, rain, or whatever weather may bring. Enjoy the moment. That means a lot, because when kids grow up, they don't remember how much money you spend on an expensive toy. They do remember the time you spent with them.
Wow. I think that is so powerful. And I learned a word in your home country of shukriya. And shukriya, I may not be saying it perfectly, but thank you. You know, and everywhere we go, we say thank you. And we're excited to announce that we'll be translating the book into Urdu and bringing it back to Pakistan with us next time we go. And we have a printer there in Sahiwal where we are printing your book, Falling Asleep to the Sound of Rain. And Lightning, Thunder, and Flashes of My Life is available in audiobook, ebook, hardcover, and paperback everywhere books are sold. And we're getting some incredible reviews. I just put up a few of the reviews, but there's dozens of reviews. There wasn't enough on this StreamYard platform for me to put all of them out. But you know, you tell the story in the book about meeting your wife, and it was really kind of a chance of fate because you accepted this modeling acting job for a few hours, and you otherwise would not have met her in the course of events. But you were very bold in how you had her name. Was it her first name or last name? And you started going through the phone directory and calling everyone.
So the last name was D'Souza. I don't want to disclose the first names because
Gotcha.
fanatics are everywhere. And 40 years later, also, I could, especially, I don't want to put my family at risk. So her last name was,
That's why that's why Hadri Kazi says courageous person to share his story. He writes on Amazon. I love it and recommend it. And that's Hadri Kazi. So a lot of people US don't realize how dangerous it still is. And so it's very wise. But you were persistent in dialing and making the phone calls. But you found out where she lived. And I think this is good advice for any young man that feels he's found a woman worth pursuing. You went to her work with flowers, but also as a doctor because you had diagnosed her and prescribed her some help. And you were following up with your patient, but you had more of a motive is you wanted to take her to coffee. And what is this 35 years later and you're still having coffee, right?
yeah, yeah. So I met
We
her
love
in,
a good love story.
right, right. And actually is 1986, once upon a time when I used to look good. So I used to model, and I met her during the modeling session. And they are Catholics, but not too many, and they don't get much of the opportunity to come up. Okay, so during the modeling session, we were three people. There was American girl, actually the U.S. citizen Caucasian girl during the modeling session, myself, and my wife. And I was more love at first sight. I don't know if people do believe in that, but I do believe in that, and I think that was my destiny.
Absolutely.
That was my destiny, and I just knew her last name, and thousands and thousands of phone directory. I have to go through the last name, and I couldn't even find her. So because the phone was on somebody else's
Well,
name.
you did your homework. You did find her, and I know your children and grandchildren are grateful that you did. Your story will live on, and the beautiful thing about creating a legacy, we don't realize that a pebble starts a ripple, and a seed creates a beautiful garden that goes on and on. You talk about your wife. You talk about your wife's faith. You talk about how she was so full of faith, even on your honeymoon. You only had, I think, six rupees left, which is barely enough to buy lunch. And her comment to you was, after you felt discouraged and said, all we have is 6 rupees, and we're new. And you were going back to work the next day, and she said, we have enough for lunch, and then God will take care of the rest. It seems that, and I didn't know you before, but any normal person's faith would have been shaken, and your wife was rock solid in faith. You even had to move the location of the wedding because the persecution that you experienced becoming a Catholic in that nation, in that Muslim nation, but then also changing your name and marrying a Christian, a Catholic. Do you want to expand on that a little bit? Because some young couples would have said, forget it, we're not getting married. Have ran from the country first to get married. You stayed in the country, you got married. What would you like to say about that?
Well, what happens usually in third world countries, most of the Muslim countries, uh, usually 99.9% of the time, women who is from a different faith, they change their faith to Islam. They are forced to do that, and that's how it is done, and that's how it's done still now. And it was a very unusual situation for me because when I read Islam is a very good religion, but people are narrow-minded who read through this because is in Arabic. So most of the people don't understand Arabic. Just imagine if the Bible was still in Hebrew, how many people would understand Bible? So that's
Right.
why that's the main thing is. So I was very broad-minded because I knew my faith. I knew that I'm allowed to marry another faith girl, which been sent to this by the messengers of God, and I'm allowed to do that. So I didn't need any Maulvi to tell me what should I do with my religion because I was well educated. Um her condition was that the marriage has to be done in church according to her conditions, and I was in love, and I did it everything for love.
So out of safety for both families, you moved the location at the last minute, and so just an amazing story. And when you came to the U.S., you weren't able to bring your family with you at that time. You had to come by yourself. You only had $1,000, which is doesn't go very far in New York City. And you had 3 job opportunities. You didn't have the funds to take the interview in Chicago, and you had a door open up for you after you took a job there in New Jersey area, New York area, open up in Texas. What was it about Texas that intrigued you and ended up being where you've landed for these last number of decades?
Okay, so when I was finishing up my residency, I had job opportunity in New York, upstate New York, and also at Columbia University where I was. But my brother-in-law John used to live in San Antonio. not knowing much at that time that Texas is a country. It's not like East Coast where in a couple of hours you can go through a lot of state lines. I thought, okay, so he's in San Antonio. We are going to Texas. So, I mean, it's kind of be a drive, not
That's
knowing much about Texas, that
the
Texas is a
size of Pakistan, really. It would take
right. So from East Coast, back then,
you.
I didn't have much knowledge about what I'm getting into. That was the point that attracted us to come to Texas because of it's the reason and kind of people we met. I mean, we met very warm people who really loved and cared for my family.
Now, Steve, I want to ask you a question because the medical director, when you told her you were coming to Texas, she laughed and says, "Have you forgotten what your last name is?" Talk to me a little bit about. I think a lot of Americans, and particularly Caucasians, don't realize the discrimination that's faced by people of color, immigrants, but particularly brown people, people from the Middle East. You talk about you and your son flying back from Canada. The other thing we have in common is both my son and your son are not only cancer survivors but Make-A-Wish recipients.
Right.
And yeah, I was able to thank Frank Shankwitz, the founder of Make-A-Wish, before he passed away. I thanked him for his hard work. I did a YouTube interview with him. I'll actually send you that video. Just a big-hearted guy who is a state trooper in Arizona that said it'd be so cool if we could start a nonprofit that could help kids that need a last wish to do what their dream is. And you're coming
Right.
back from Canada with your son on your Make-A-Wish trip, and it's just a few days or a week or so after 9/11, and you face tremendous discrimination that I think most Americans don't understand. Give me a peek at what that was like, and so we can just understand what goes on
Well,
sometimes, or a lot of times.
the thing is that when a nation go through hard times, you talk about war when Japanese were targeted, and there are times when we target certain race and certain color people because we think everybody is a threat. And when 9/11 happened, every brown person or every person who has a different name than our regular names, we get alert that, hey, is a good guy or he is a bad guy. And this was just so fresh that a lot of people told me not to leave the US and go for this trip. But my son wanted to meet Jackie Chan, and I just wanted to let it go and just get it done. And I
Good
think
for you.
once they made the list of the good people and bad people, I never had any issues at any airports because I fly by, because I think they think that I'm a good guy after 40 years being in this country.
But I think during 9/11, they interrogated you maybe for 90 minutes and really rung you through the questioning. And so I'm sorry that you had to go through that. I can't wait to meet your son. I've met your daughter virtually, and I just, it's so important. You talk about family, and I guess it goes without saying, but for those of us that have, I mean, we're all going to die, and you talk about it in your book that knowing the end is near, probably nearer for you than it is for somebody watching this. How have you been able to get closer to your family, instill more quality time and values into your family? What advice would you give to somebody right now that maybe they don't have a diagnosis yet, but they know they're running on borrowed time?
Right. So I tell everybody that for me, expiration is written, okay? But most of the people who are young, they are working or whatever they're doing in their life, struggle, there's no expiration date. And they forget that everybody comes with the expiration date. Tomorrow is not promised for anyone. So love and hug your loved ones every single day. Don't hesitate to say, I love you. And don't postpone your dreams. Don't postpone your trips. Go, and you don't have to take a fancy trip with your family. You can even go for a drive for 30 minutes to somewhere where you can have a quality time with your family and love them, hug them, and tell them that you love them. and how lucky you are to have a family.
That's so powerful right there. Don't postpone your trips. You talk about the trip to Israel and how meaningful that was for you. What are some other trips that you're hoping to take while you're able? What are some things on the dream board that you and your family are hoping to do together?
Uh, so I haven't done the trip to Japan, Australia, New Zealand. That part of the world I need to explore, and then I have to take a trip, a safari trip with my son to Africa. Though I'm not a big hunter, I don't like to kill anything, any living thing, without any purpose. So, but I want to take a hunting trip as a joke. But I want to take a hunting trip because my son is true Texan and he is into hunting and all that stuff. So I want to take a trip with him. And I think God will allow me and God will give me some time. I'm going through this experimental treatment and putting my body through this whole process so that we create a future for other people who are going through this process so they don't live on a borrowed time. They will have a definite treatment.
Now, Steve, talk to me a little bit about that because you're a medical doctor. You're so passionate about your patients. You have third generation children that you're caring for there in Texas, and the local community just loves you. They see you as a hero, and they really adore you. So talk to me about a couple things. I mean, there's so much. Our time's limited. We're definitely going to have you come back. But how old were your children when you and your wife moved to Texas and took the medical job there?
Yeah, so my daughter was 6 years old, and my son was barely turning 3. So they were very young, and we end up from New York City to West Texas. And when they came to the airport, from airport, Midland Airport to Big Spring, when we were driving, and my kid's first question, where are the buildings? So they was kind of used to seeing hard
For those of you that have not driven through West Texas, it looks like you're in or Dubai or something. I mean, it's desert on either side. Now you've been able to do some revolutionary things there and help a lot of poor families. Telemedicine is a big passion of yours. In fact, you have a whole room committed in your practice to telemedicine that you've been able, particularly during the pandemic, to help because parents would have 100 or 200 mile drive if their child needed to see a specialist or had major issues going on. What changes? And then I want to get back to your experimental treatment there in Houston. What's been the most fulfilling thing for you as a doctor in your life work?
Yeah, so when you taking care of third generation people, you are just not a doctor, you are family. And people treat you as a family. And I've been loved by so many people, and I'm so fortunate to take care of so many sick people. Uh, uh, Jesus doesn't come only in churches. Jesus comes in a shape of a sick, poor kid who could be in your
Yeah.
office, and you don't turn them away because they don't have ability to pay, or they are not as clean as you are or as fancy as you are. So the faith is that you take care of everybody regardless, because those kids never picked up. Every kid, every kid had a choice, they will be born in upscale places, but kids don't have a choice, they are born where God put them. So you take care of every person regardless, because you don't know where God is testing you. And I think I
Wow.
got everything in my life because I didn't discriminate people based on their economics. I took care of every kind of people, and people love me, what I do. So that's the thing I want. Even if I'm gone, I want this thing to go on and take care of underprivileged
Steve, I
kids.
want to share a couple of well, you've got a heart as big as Texas, and you realize, like you said it well. Texas is a country. Somebody locally there, Hinisabu. Steve is a small town hero, such an amazing human being, so humble and selfless to so many. You can learn a lot from this book, from lessons to inspiration. Great read, and just everywhere. My daughter was one of Dr. Steve's first patients here in Howard County when she was 5 years old, and he had moved here with his family. She's now 30. And so just when you go on Amazon and read the reviews, it's very, very touching. And talk to me a little bit about this experimental surgery. I mean, while families were enjoying their Christmas, you gave all that up to be away from your family, to be in the hospital. I think you're at MD Anderson right now. And you did it with no promises, but the hope that the research would help others moving forward. Tell us a little bit about what was the procedure they did.
So this is a phase one study where I can not disclose a lot of things because researchers want to put. So what they do, they take it out your cells, like it's kind of like a bone marrow, like a stem cells type of deal, but it is not a stem cells. It's your cells. They take it out, they take it into the lab, they bioengineered it, and they make a target, and they teach those cells, the T cells, that they go and fight with the solid tumor cancer. Now, this concept has been there for leukemias and lymphomas, but not for the solid tumor. So I'm the first pancreatic patient in the world to get this kind of treatment. So what they did, they took out my cells, they bioengineered in a lab. It took 1 month. Now what they did, they wiped out my bone marrow completely, so I have no immune system. I can die from any infection. uh, After they wipe out my bone marrow, they injected those cells, assuming that they will find the solid tumor and kill the tumor. And if this concept works, that will be a revolution treating solid tumors. They have treated so far lung cancer patient and the colorectal patient. I'm the pancreatic patient, first one. So when this study goes phase one, phase two, and phase three, and if this becomes a standard of care, that will save millions of lives throughout the world. So I thought, I'm in a good shape. I can sacrifice my body for this kind of treatment.
Steve, in life and in death, you're always paying it forward. And I wish more of our people, and I know from this book, they will be inspired. The audio book is available and available everywhere now. Just Google "Falling Asleep to the Sound of Rain." What is your grandson's name, Steve?
His name is Leonidas, but we call him Leo. And Leo is now 16 months, and he somehow loves me very much. And I was doing a video. Talked to him on a video. So on a Christmas day, I was talking to him, and what he was trying to do, that he was trying to put his fingers on the phone and pull my nose out. So he thought he can pull me out of the phone so I can play with him. So
I love that. Well,
so the kids have their own way of thinking about things.
I think attitude is a huge part, and I've been able to see your journey on this with Tom, and as you've written the book with him, it's very very powerful. What words do you want to leave Leo after? Because I know his face lights up when he sees you. What does he call you? Is it Poppy or what does he call you?
He calls me Papa.
Papa.
Yeah.
I
Uh, and I
he
think,
lights up. What
go ahead.
what do you want to leave with?
Uh,
What gem do you want him to hear from you when he's say like 12 or 15 or even 18 years old graduating from high school?
Well, I would leave a message that this life is not perfect. The society where we live will never be perfect, but with all these imperfections, we need to do a better job to make it better for us and for everyone around us.
What's your biggest regret, Steve?
Uh, my biggest regret is that I should have spent more time with my family. Uh, I should have balanced it more. Uh, so that's my biggest regret, that I should have spent more time with my family. But as a young person, you're struggling through uh, the life struggles and making living, you forget to do that.
What are you most proud of?
I'm proud of that. As an immigrant, I came to this country, which is my country I love. I got everything what I dreamed of. I got more share than I could worth of. So I mean, I'm really think that I'm proud that I've been loved by so many people who are not related to me by blood, but they are related to me as a human being, as a religion of human being.
Well, I think you've summed it up in your quote here today. Don't postpone your trips and say to your family often that I love you. Dr. Steve Ahmed, Falling Asleep to the Sound of. Your book is available everywhere. Subtitle is Thunder, Lightning, and Flashes of My Life. We're getting amazing reviews. The audio book was just launched last week. We're very excited about it. Have you had a chance to listen to the audio yet, Steve?
No, my Amazon Audible account has been somehow something happened to it. So it's the holiday time. I'm trying to play with them and see what they can do for my account, because I have 93 titles which are just vanished. So I'm not happy about that.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I can send you a link. So I'll send you a link into that today, and hopefully you get that resolved with them. It's available everywhere, not just on Amazon Audible, but also on iTunes and also on ACX and other sites as well. So in the description, when I send you the video link here, it'll have all the links to where people can purchase the book. Steve, just so encouraging and inspiring. And we've enjoyed watching your journey. As we go into 2023, what advice would you give listeners and viewers into 2023?
Well, I give the same old advice that make make uh, make time for your family. Spend as much as you can, and say often "I love you." Try to forgive people, and try not to judge people, because every person who looks different from you doesn't mean that they don't have a story. Everybody has a story.
Very powerful. Thanks so much, Steve, for being Michael D. show in the Beyond Publishing Studios. Falling Asleep to the Sound of Rain. Dr. Steve, your story lives on in many powerful ways. Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
sir.